right. So your mindset can really set the tone for how you live your life, how you invest, and really the results that you achieve and the goals that you set. And my good friend, my good buddy, Steven Pesavento is here today. He does the Investor Mindset podcast. Just an amazing guy, just really great at focusing your mindset. Where do you want to go? Setting the right goals, keeping the right things in front of you, which is really, really important because that really determines really what you're focused on is really where you're gonna get. So, Stephen, really excited to have you today. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really well. I'm excited to be here. Love what you've put together with the show.
Well, it's been great being friends with you, being partners on some deals, and just really seeing kind of what you've put together. You've really put together just an amazing program for investors and just all sorts of resources to really work on mindset. And it's really fascinating to me personally because I'm a growth guy, I'm a mindset guy, I'm a personal development guy. I know that's like your cup of tea, but talk to us a little bit about why mindset is so important and why how personal growth really fits into real estate investing.
Well, at the core behind everything that we do is a set of beliefs. And really, mindset at the core is simply just our thoughts and beliefs that end up leading to the actions we take and therefore the outcomes we experience. And we can change the way that we think. We can change our mindset. We can actually end up changing the behavior, changing what we do, and therefore changing the outcome that we're experiencing in our life. And what's beautiful about that is by being able to listen to great shows like this, being able to work with coaches and mentors, being able to learn from others and understand how they think about investing, about business, about life, about parenting, about any of the important things that are going to come up, can allow you to adopt a new set of beliefs, allow you to think differently than you currently are, and therefore put you in a different position. And when it comes to investing, one of the biggest challenges and problems people have is that they have a set of beliefs that don't serve them when it comes to making investment decisions. Many people don't know what they really want. They don't know why they want it. They don't know how to get there. They don't know who's going to help them get there. But at the core of it, they also are afraid. They have fear connected to their beliefs about money. And all of these things end up playing a role in the final decisions that they make to either get involved or not get involved. And so a lot of people end up going the safe path. And the safe path isn't actually the safe path. It's just what they've gone to, they've been taught to believe. And so really what we do at the Investor Mindset podcast and what I talk about with all of my clients is a path towards how do we understand what we're actually looking for? How can we really understand why we want it to further understand what that is, and then determine the path to who can help us get there?
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's the idea of starting with the end in mind, or Simon Sinek's start with why, right? The idea of like, if you don't know where you're going, you're just going to be kind of wandering. And you kind of touched on a couple things that I find really personally relevant. One is just this set of belief systems that we were handed down a lot of times through our upbringing or through our experience. And a lot of times they're not healthy views around money, or there are things that are just not true about ourselves. And so we have this collection of maybe painful things we've gone through in our own life. We think, oh, I'll never get ahead, or I'll never be someone who's successful. And I realized, at a certain point in my life where I realized, I can actually change those things. I can change those beliefs, which then, the only limits I have are just the ability to like what I actually believe about myself to be true. So what are some kind of practices that you found, or maybe even some daily habits that you have that you help to, are they affirmations? Are they things that, you just continue to remind yourself, well, this is who I am, this is where I want to go, or you read your goals every day, or what are some kind of daily things that you do to really keep those things in front of you?
There's a ton of different tactical things you can do, from, meditating to get a better view of your thoughts to, really starting to have a view of who you are and having that self-awareness, and affirmations and all these different types of tactics and strategies. But one of the best things I think people can do as a place to get started is by going and finding a list of people who are living the life that you want to live and are experiencing life in the way that you want to experience in that specific area or niche or part of their life, and modeling it, and really going out and finding those people and starting to understand how they think about those different things. And what's really important about this is an identity it's an identity exercise. And at the core of it, what we're really doing is we're finding those people who are living the life we want to live. And then we're starting to ask ourselves, how would they think about this? What would they do in this situation? And so a really great example is, there's a phenomenal, famous, one of the most successful hedge fund investors of all time, Ray Dalio. And you might read Ray Dalio's book, Principles, or you might listen to a number of different podcasts and speeches that he has about investing, about what's going on in the economy, about his view in the world. And you might be in a situation where you're going to make an investment and you might ask yourself, well, what are the principles, or how would Ray Dalio think about this? And then you can therefore step into his shoes, borrow his beliefs, and start carrying them yourself until you actually end up being in the position where you see those beliefs working out in your favor and you start to believe them in yourself. And then they go from borrowed beliefs into yours. So I think that's one of the most powerful things that I really spent a lot of time doing. Was I listened to hours and hours and days worth of podcasts, and I'm constantly putting new information in my mind from people who believe the types of things that I want to believe, who are promoting the types of ideas that I want to promote within my own mind. And I'm working hard to protect my mind from listening to things that are going to bring me down, or going to be negative, or going to end up hurting my ability to show up as the individual that I want to show up with. And so this is true across everything, whether you're talking investing, whether you're talking performance in your business, in your job, in your home, it's universal. So when you can start understanding how to live with the investor mindset from an investment perspective, when you can start living with the ideas that end up making up the investor mindset, those things are going to end up improving other parts of your life. And the reason why I know that to be true is because I spent so much of my time, I grew up in a pretty rough and tumble household. We didn't have a lot, 2 parents that loved me, but it was chaotic. It was a mess. And I'm grateful to have gone through and been able to climb out of that mess and be able to build the person that sits in front of you today. But I had to do it. I didn't have a choice. I either was going to end up like the people who are around me, or I was going to find a new way of thinking. And so for many people, they end up getting comfortable because they're not living in that type of terror and that type of world that I was, experiencing. And so I made a decision early on that I was going to do whatever I could, and I obsessed about it. I went really deep into it, and that's allowed me to move through and create, so much power inside of myself. And I've got so much room to grow. That doesn't mean I don't still deal with fear or anxiety or, worry or, wonder about taking action or procrastinating. Like, I'm a normal person just like everybody else, but I'm spending that time building these beliefs, these ways of thinking, taking those actions every single day because I had to. So for those of you who maybe don't have to, or you're living a really good life right now, or you're in a position like I am where I'm pretty comfortable, like life's good, business is going great, our investors are happy, like things are on a great path. Well, that's exactly the time where you have to appreciate where you're at, but then you have to step back and ask yourselves, okay, well, where's the opportunity for me to grow? And who are the people that I can now look up to so I can move from where I'm at today towards where I actually want to be tomorrow?
Yeah, Steven, you've mentioned some really good things there. There's a saying by Tommy Tremendous Jones that you'll be the same 5 years from now, except for the books you read and the people that you meet. And you brought it up really in the sense of books and just thinking about, someone. I'm a huge reader. I try to read about 60 books a year. I think the average CEO reads 60 books a year, but the average person only reads I think it was 10 books or 8 books. It's a very small number, but it's amazing how if you just actually, a book becomes, my dad always said this, he's in education, but he would say, a book is a tutor. It's like somebody sitting there working with you on something and you can learn. And then I remember when I was going through a really challenging point in my life, I had like a consultant or a coach or somebody who's helping me. And they said, it's almost like when you're in this situation, just what you said, you have this cast of characters there to help you, right? They're sitting at the table and they're, you can kind of tap into what would this person do? Or what would that person have to say right now? Or how would they encourage you? And it's just amazing how you can actually change your belief system and also change your life. But the biggest limiting factor a lot of times really is the way that we think or the place that we've been brought up. So you and I have been friends for a while. I've admired how you've done that. I know you shared a little bit about your background, kind of being a little rough and tumble, but it's just amazing how, once we kind of complete some of the things in the past and we're able to kind of, realize, oh, okay, this was my past, but I can really create who do I want to be in the future and what direction do I want to go. It can be absolutely life-changing. So I think it's great.
The other thing that I'll add to that is that as I'm reading these books or I'm listening to these things, I have professionals around me who are supporting that growth. That might be people on my team who are helping our business go find the right investments and grow and be able to create the returns. But even in my personal life, I have multiple coaches, both from a mindset perspective, from a business perspective, from a health perspective. I work with, phenomenal doctors who are able to dive into, what's going on inside my body so I can perform at a high level. But it's about using those books or those podcasts or those tools that you have access to that are free or cheap, and then combining them with phenomenal professionals, coaches who can say, hey, well, while you're reading this book, you had that emotional reaction, or while you're reading this book, you learned this lesson. Now, how are we going to study it to really understand, to master it, rather than reading a million things? How do we take that one thing from that and how do we implement it? And then having other people around who can help pull that out, whether that's working through trauma to be able to get over your fear about money. Maybe you had some situation growing up and you're afraid of losing it all, so you don't want to invest. Well, that's something you need to work through, and you can absolutely work through it on your own. But when you can get, a great coach around you, you can end up going to another level, a great financial advisor who really knows your stuff to help you understand how to think about money. But then it's about going and learning these things and then actually applying them. And there's no shame in reading, 100 books and only finding 10 or 20 things that you actually apply and move forward with. But the key is that you're looking for these lessons and then you're deciding that you're going to really master that lesson.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk a little bit more about, mindset. I know a lot of people have, things that kind of trip them up. And I think you said, too, a lot of people, like maybe they don't take action or there's an analysis paralysis or other things. But what are some other things? I mean, you just gave a ton of practical stuff, but is there one thing that you think is kind of like, this is the key, right? Like once you start doing this, it kind of gets everything else in motion, and it's kind of a good first step for people to start.
So what I'd encourage people to do is, we've got a great asset that we put together, kind of summarizing these 5 success principles learned from interviewing, 100 plus successful investors and entrepreneurs. And so that's called the 5 success principles. You guys can grab that at investormindset.com/success. That's investormindset.com/success. But I'm going to tell you about one of them right now. And one of those really key pieces to understand about when it comes to mindset, when it comes about being successful as an investor, as a business owner, as just a human being in your life, is really understanding what you want and why you want it. And you've heard it before, and I guarantee you most of you aren't doing it. And how do I know that? Because I work with very high-end clients that pay a lot of money to work with me and to work with others, and they aren't doing it. And at times I'm not doing it. And I know this stuff, right? And so it's a constant practice of reapplying this, not only every year, not only every quarter, but every month and every day and every hour of your life. And what you really do is you want to sit down and you want to understand, well, what do you want? What is the underlying objective of what you're shooting for? And why is only there to help you clarify further what that objective actually is. Many people say, start with why. It's a phenomenal idea, and it's important to understand what your purpose is. And I encourage you to spend time getting clear on what that is. But below the surface, most people's purpose is to have security for their family, to have freedom, and to be able to do what they want. And below that, there's some other human needs. But once we start understanding what we want, we could start all the way at the highest level of everything in our life. Where do we want to live? What does that look like? What does a day in the life of work look like? What do I do in relationship to how much time I spend with my family? And so once you can start getting clear on that picture, then when we come to the frame of investing, we can start understanding better what we want and why we want it and what's going to be the best investment for us. So once we understand what that picture of our life is going to look like, we can then ask ourselves the question of what do we want and how could we end up going there? So if what you say is, I'm looking to be able to have more freedom and flexibility so that I can have more fun with my family, and so that I can do the things that matter most to me. And I might say, great, well, there's a couple different investment options that you could go. But if we ask, why is that important? And you might say to yourself, well, I want to work on something that I'm fulfilled by, that I'm passionate about. And I want to spend time with my family because I know how short that amount of time can be. Well, what you probably don't want to do is go spend the amount of time that people like you, Bronson, and I spend 60, 80 hours a week building a business for multiple years to eventually end up having that freedom and flexibility that we're going for. If what you're looking for right now is the ability to step directly into freedom and flexibility, or to step into it within a short period of time, and you enjoy what you do, probably what you should do is stay working in your career and find a way to pull the money that you have out and make some smart investment choices. Some of those choices might end up being in real estate, but we'll get further into that in a second. But if you're in a position where you're younger, or frankly, you're at a position where you want that fulfillment of building a business and you want to spend that time doing that, and you're in a position where there's the right amount of time available for you to exchange in order to get there, then that's absolutely the direction you should go. So at the core of what I'm saying is, when we understand what we want and why we want it, we can start to get clarification on the criteria of what we're looking for. And then we can start to notice when that criteria is available to us. We can start searching for it. And this is the effect that many of us feel when we buy a new car, when we go buy our new BMW X5 and we're excited about it. And before we started looking for X5s, we didn't really notice that we see them driving down the road, or the slug bug effect when you were a kid, where you'd keep your eye out for that Volkswagen Beetle so you could slug your brother or sister in the arm and be excited about playing that game. It's because once we start understanding what we're looking for, we understand why we actually want it, then we can start making decisions about who can help us get there, and therefore how and what steps we're actually going to go. Is that helpful, Bronson?
No, it's great. And again, I just can't state the value of getting clear on what you want. And I think you have a very articulate way of stating it. You've obviously done it. You're living it. To me, I go to a goals event every year. I do a goals retreat every year, and I basically create some goals. I read them every morning. I have affirmations I do every morning. I've just watched the incredibly creative power of being clear on what you want and keeping it in front of you and taking steps towards it. So I love that you're somebody who's doing it. You're coaching others to do it. You're really a leader in this space, and I love it. And I love that you're in real estate and you're doing it, because a lot of people are one or the other, right? But when you have a breakthrough in one, it almost always leads to a breakthrough in the other. Can you talk to us? So let's shift gears for a minute. I want to talk a little bit more about your real estate, because you're doing some big stuff in real estate. I know we've partnered on a deal, and you work with lots of investors. But you started flipping hundreds of houses, right? You had a business where you guys did flips, and then you shifted your business to move toward multifamily. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what you were doing and kind of why that switch, and kind of that process of how you got there?
Yeah, well, where we're at today is, we've raised tens of millions of dollars for large multifamily deals. We recently closed a 232 unit deal where, we're the only equity provider on that opportunity. We found this great deal, worked with a phenomenal team to end up getting it closed. And we're in a position where we're helping hundreds of investors invest in these types of assets. And it was really designed from day one when we made that decision. And so I'll tell you kind of how we got where we're at today. And it really came down to, we were buying, 75 houses a year. We're flipping houses. We're making great income. We're making great earned income. Flipping houses is short-term capital gains. It ends up being charged as earned income. And we're in a position where I've got a 15-person team. We're having success. We're at the top of our game. We're in the top 1% of those people who are doing what we do. We go to events. We feel really good about where we're at. And it reminded me a lot of the feeling I had when I was a management consultant. I had the sexy title, and I had the ego and the good feeling to go along with it. And I was making good money, but I didn't feel fulfilled. I felt like something was missing. And what ended up coming into clarity for me was that I was sitting at an event, because I spend a significant amount of money on growth and improvement and training. And I'm sitting at this event and I'm listening to the speaker talk about this idea of where do you want your business to be in 10 years and who do you want to be working with? And how do you want to build a business that you're able to work with very high level clients that are excited to work with you, that your value proposition is so powerful that they continue to work with you over and over again. And I looked at my current business, and what I realized was the clients I was working with then were not the clients that I wanted to work with for the next decade. They were great people. We were able to help them tremendously, but people don't sell their house for 60 cents on the dollar twice. This is not a repeat transaction. And they're not people who are in a mind state where they're thinking about how can they thrive. Many of them were trying to understand just how to survive. And it was phenomenal to be able to work with those people and help them in the way, but it just felt out of alignment. You know, being someone who's so focused on who you surround yourself with, I really wanted to create a business around that ideal client, around other successful, like-minded people who had capital. They wanted to invest it. They wanted to create more freedom, flexibility, and fun. And they wanted to create a better life. And they believed that real estate was the path towards getting there. And so that's where VonFinch Capital really was reborn, was when we had that realization. You know, we made some changes in our business. We attempted to serve investors in our current capacity. And we just realized that, you know, we had done 200 deals in 2.5 years. And the amount of effort and energy that went into that in comparison with going and buying, you know, we recently closed a 232 unit deal in Dallas. The amount of effort that went in and the amount of upside for both of our investors and ourselves was not even comparable. And so really the reason we went towards multifamily is multiple reasons. It's a much more secure asset class. It has longer term financing. Therefore, in times of economic instability, you're in a more secure position. They're large enough deals, so we're able to secure phenomenal employees and team members and vendors who can manage those properties around the country. And then most importantly, what our business is really built around are the investors, the individual people, you know, oftentimes business owners, but many of them, you know, are working professionals and jobs. And they're coming to us with this place where they realize that there's a whole nother way to invest in real estate above and beyond going and owning and operating their own rental properties, or they've been burned by operating their own rental properties and they want to be truly passive. And so they believe in the same belief we have about partnering with experts. And so that's how we got where we're at today. That's how we ended up building this, you know, massive business that's seeing, you know, tremendous amount of growth and been able to return great returns to investors. And it's been fun process, but it wasn't easy. It was hard to step off of the top of one mountain when you're looking across the valley and you see the peak that you actually want to be on. And we've been trucking up that other peak, but it took actually going down the mountain, stepping off of that success we had in order to build a business that was actually going to drive us closer towards what we were really looking for. So in a long story short, it went back to that vision exercise. It went back to getting back closer to what we really want, why we really wanted it, and how we could build a business around working with those people.
You know, it's a great story. I mean, you mentioned a number of things that I think are really critical. You know, Warren Buffett has this saying, we only work with people we like and we trust. And, you know, as you get to be older in your business or even as an investor, you start to say, you know, who do I want to work with? Who are the people that I want to be around? A lot of times it's not just, doesn't have to do with performance, doesn't have to do with what are the returns. It's like, well, who do I actually get along with? Who would I go and have a beer with on a Friday night? Or who are the people that I actually kind of doing the same things that I want to do? And also when you're looking at your business, you're saying, if I want to scale this, if I want this to be a long-term successful thing, I've got to get out of doing what I'm doing here. And like you talked, I love you talk about almost the peaks. You're like, I'm over at this peak here, but I want to go to this other higher one over here. And it's going to take, I may actually have to go down the mountain and rebuild to be able to go retool. And it's not that you lose, you have all this great experience that you've had, but I think it's the experience a lot of people have doing single family is that once they get, and I've had, you know, over 1,200 calls with investors, and this is something that comes up where they're like, I want to scale, but I just can't. You know, I've got 10 houses or I've got 40 houses or I've done this many flips and it's just so much work. And then they realize, you know, I really like being passive. And I think, you know, you and I know you're an investor as well in the stuff that you do. And I think we should all aspire to be full-time passive investors, or at least develop that skill, because it's really valuable, because then you can actually grow toward your goals where it doesn't necessarily take up more of your time. And I know you and I are young, so we have a lot of energy. We want to build something that's going to last, that's going to help a lot of people. And I know it's really, really impactful. So, you've done a great job. I actually want to touch base on this part too, about kind of team and kind of how you've done that. Because I look at you, Steven, and I see that I really admire how you've brought around people around you that really supported you in a lot of different ways. And I see you're doing a lot of different awesome things that give you life, and you're really in your strength, where you're coaching and you're, raising money, and you're doing deals, and it's super exciting. But how have you effectively built a good team around you? What are some kind of principles? And I guess how this would apply to somebody who's active is, obviously you're building your business, kind of business principles, but also if somebody's more passive in their investing, how do they find people on their team? Maybe it's a good tax person or a good attorney, or what are some kind of principles you look for in good people to work with?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really important to kind of understand what you're the best at, where your strengths are and weaknesses. And so I've spent years really being able to really triangulate where my best skill set is. And when I coach people, I only work with, 4 or 5 guys at a time. It's really for fulfillment. We absolutely, there's an investment that goes along with that, but it's really a fulfillment piece. And so our business is really built around real estate. At the core, what I realized while I was building VonFinch Homes was that we had 15 great people on the team, and that the success and failure of the company really came down to the people. And so what I've really gone out is under this belief that partnering with experts is the fastest path to success. And so the way that I've gone about doing that in partnership can be hiring great people, could be, having a joint venture partner where you guys are, splitting the profits. It could be a situation where there's no monetary exchange, but somebody's getting, something back in return. For example, when I'm helping support or volunteering, or I'm coaching others, I'm getting a huge fulfillment piece out of it because I'm seeing the amount of success they're experiencing. So I really believe in that. So I have partners of my own. I have great coaches and mentors that are around me that are supporting me, but I've gone out and really gone with this belief that if I know what I'm the best at, my duty is to go and find people who are the best at what they do, and to hire them and bring them onto the team. And that might mean people that are more successful in some area, or that I might feel vulnerable hiring someone that is truly smarter than me at the thing that I'm hiring them at. And this is where most young executives or young people who are building teams, or people who are maybe not as mature, it's very difficult to hire people that are smarter than you at the thing that they're being hired. However, that's the best way to succeed, is to find people who can be very, very motivated. And so some of the ways that we've gone about doing that is going and finding great local operators who are executing locally and have access to some phenomenal deal flow that others won't have access to. But in return, we can bring, phenomenal asset management. We can bring connections. We can bring debt. We can bring equity. We can bring a lot to the table that ends up adding a ton of value for that company that's going to execute for us, and a ton of value to our investors who are coming in with the capital on the other side. So there's a lot of ways to look at it, but the core of that belief is that partnering with experts is the fastest path to success. And really what that means is finding people who you really know, like, and trust, and who are really great at what they do, and finding an incentive plan to be able to bring them into your world. And so if you're a passive investor and you're building your passive investing portfolio, some of the key experts that you want to partner with, that you're going to want to bring onto your team, is you're going to want to find some great sponsors, some people who are operating deals, people and companies like VonFinch, people like Bronson, other people who are out there who have access to phenomenal deals that you would not have access to otherwise. So you want to find people that you know, like, and trust. You want to spend time vetting them up front. Part of that process might be having an attorney on your team. This attorney might help you with estate planning. They might review documents. They might help you make different decisions, or introduce you to sponsors that they know, like, and trust. You might go and find great CPAs that are going to help you be really intelligent about taxes and setting up different structures. You might have a financial advisor who's going to help you understand your personal financial situation. And don't confuse that with people who are going to sell you financial securities. You want someone who truly is going to advise you, and you're probably going to pay them a fee for that advisement. And that advisement is not going to come based on the product that they're selling. So you want to go and figure out, well, where are you really strong, and how can you build the right team around those weaknesses?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think, yeah, building your team is so important. And it's not just if you have a business, it's if you're an investor, whatever you're doing, getting around experts that like and trust that will get you to that next level is huge. Before we wrap, talk to us a little bit about, this is a big topic, but just whatever you want to engage with this. But we're obviously in an inflationary environment. Rates, at least at the time of recording this, are rising. There's some risk of recession. How do you see the multifamily market performing, in the case of a recession or in the case of inflation or rising rates? Can you give some thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say. It's hard to pull out my crystal ball and be able to tell the audience, this is where things are going, this is what's going to happen, and this is what you need to do as a result. But what I can say is that it's really important to, one, understand economically that we go through ups and downs in the economy, but two, that you want to be making the same types of due diligence decisions on the investments that you're going to make, so that you're in a position that the investments that you are placing capital into are going to have buffer to perform, that they're going to be with people that you can trust, people that are experts at executing, and they're going to be making decisions on a day-to-day basis on what's best for that investment, because they have alignment of interest, but they also have the experience and track record to back it up. Most of the mistakes that are going to happen during any kind of recessionary period is not going to happen because of fraud. It's not going to happen because someone intentionally does something wrong. The mistakes that are going to happen are going to be out of, pure lack of knowledge, lack of experience, lack of understanding what happens. In 2018, when we were flipping, 75 houses a year, I had somewhere between 10 and 14 houses that are on the market in 2018, when interest rates went up for the first time in, 5 to 8 years. And immediately the market stopped. And we were expecting those, 10 houses to sell. And our entire budget was banking on those houses selling. So I know personally what happens when the market shifts, and the importance of having reserves and having a plan and having additional capital and planning for the worst of what's going to happen. And so it's important to find great teams and sponsors to invest with that have that way of thinking. The other piece, when it comes to inflation itself, investing in real estate is one of the best places to be when it comes to inflation. It's one of the reasons that cap rates are compressing. In other words, the value of properties are going up, is because more and more people are moving money out of paper assets into hard assets because of the inflationary period that we're in. So when you can find a hard asset and have fixed rate debt on it, you're in the best position. When you can find a hard asset that has value add opportunity, might have variable debt, but has a cap, you're in, a great position as well. When you're investing in hard assets like real estate, one of the biggest and most beneficial things about making that investment in real estate is that when rents rise, NOI rises, net operating income. In other words, the income, the revenue that's coming into the business, and valuations are based on that revenue. So when rents go up, value of your property goes up, and therefore the property is worth more money. The second piece that's beneficial about that is that your debt, your loan to value, goes down. So as the property experiences inflation and value, you actually are going further and further into a more secure position by having a lower loan to value. So long story short, absolutely one of the best ways to do it is to invest into, real estate and hedging against inflation using real estate. It just makes a lot of sense. So we actually put together a phenomenal piece on hedging against inflation, which you guys can grab. That does a little bit of an overview about the importance of hedging against inflation. And then we've got a great training. It's about 30 minutes. It's totally free. And we're just going to walk you through the importance and some of the benefits of investing passively. And you can find that at vonfinch.com/inflation.
Awesome. Well, Steven, I really appreciate you. I mean, obviously there's so many things that you've added value today, and just different things you've given people to take action steps to do, because obviously it's not just the mindset, but it's the action steps. But for you, for all that you're adding to the community, the investor community, as well as helping people with their mindset, figuring out what they really want, I have so much respect for what you're doing. So thank you for everything you're adding to individuals, to leaders, to investors, which is awesome. So we need to have you back on again in the future. But if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's a good way to get in touch with you?
One of the first places is head over to Instagram, Steven.Pesavento. Shoot me a DM. Let me know that you listen to this show. Me or a member of my team will respond, share some different resources, information that will help you continue to grow. You can always head over to VonFinch.com to learn more about the types of investments that we do and learn about getting involved and schedule a call with either me or another member of our team. But the big thing I want to leave you guys with today is that you just listened to a great conversation with a couple people who are fairly experienced in this space of investing. We've been in the game. We've made investments. We've made decisions that have ended up leading us into a really great place. So what I want to encourage you to do is ask yourself from today's conversation, what was one takeaway? What was one lesson? What was one thing that was valuable about the conversation? I want you to hold on to that. And I want you to commit to yourself that you're going to do something with it. If you can stop your car right now and make a phone call that's going to help you move a next step, or commit and go grab one of those resources right now, that could end up changing the direction and getting you closer to the life you want to build. So the big thing I want to leave you with is just take some action. You learned some lessons. Now, what can you do with those lessons?
Absolutely. Yeah. Life has an action bias. And if we just take action on the things we're learning, we'll get, 10 times further than what we would have otherwise. Steven, thanks so much. Appreciate you being here. Look forward to seeing you hopefully really soon.
Thanks, guys.
So Steve Pesavento, great guy, good friend of mine. I love talking about mindset. And I think, like he was talking about takeaways. What are you going to take away from this? Because if you don't do anything, there's no point of even listening to this, right? If you're not going to actually take an action step. And so everybody that I've talked to, everybody that I admire, it's all about taking action steps, and it's really, there's a quote from Tony Robbins. I know Steven is a Tony Robbins fan as well, but he says, it's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. And I think that's so important that when you actually make a decision to take an action, you make a decision that I'm going to spend that weekend away and I'm going to figure out what I really want. I'm going to go to a goals event. I'm going to really determine what it is I want to do, where I want to go, where do I want to be in 5 years? I want to leave my job. I want to start that business. I want to invest. Whatever it is that you want to do. If you create that goal and you say, I'm actually going to take these steps, your life will change. Second thing I wanted to say is he talked about the importance of getting a coach. Now, I have coaches in my life in different ways. Obviously, some of these come through books and informal ways. I have other ones that are formal coaches. And I've started doing some coaching with individuals where I actually coach individuals on, different aspects of life, mindset, raising money, passive investing. And so if you're interested in hearing about working with me personally, I do have a limited number of spots available to do some coaching. So if that's of interest to you and you'd like to work on your investing, you'd like to work on your mindset, you'd like to work on where you want to get where you want to go with your investing, I would love to have a conversation with you and just see if it's something that we could partner together on. So feel free to reach out to me. The best way to do that would be to send me an email, bronson@bronsonequity.com. So thank you for taking the time to educate yourself. The reason I say thank you is because when you educate yourself and you get better, it forces the other people around you to change as well. So you don't change by yourself. Other people actually change around you. And indirectly, you actually do change myself and other people because you're in networks a lot of times that I run in, or maybe, I run a local meetup in my in Los Angeles area. And so when someone in the group changes, it changes me, right? It changes all of us. We're all connected to each other. And so anyway, I'd love to hear any feedback from this episode. I gave my email a little bit earlier. Feel free to shoot me a message on that. Thanks again for taking the time. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Mailbox Money.
You've been listening to the Mailbox Money Podcast. For more free resources, articles, and videos, go to bronsonequity.com. There you can download your copy of the special report, The Single Best Investment Strategy During and After a Pandemic. None of the information shared here is an offer to buy a specific investment, and this is for educational purposes only. Consult your financial, legal, and tax professionals and use your own common sense before making any investment decisions. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time for more Mailbox Money.